patience as we let people in, and welcome to, I would say it's not a new world with these Zoom meetings. This time last year, we actually did it before Christmas, the junior parent meeting last year, but traditionally it is the junior parents meeting. It was January for many years. We've kind of gone back and forth on, do you do it before Christmas? Do you do it before the holidays, or you do it right when we get back? We settled on this time, mostly because there was so much probably going on in so many people's lives that we wanted to be able to just focus on this. And we do this meeting every year where we start the post-secondary process. And it's not necessarily a college meeting by any stretch. There's
John, you're muted.
That is a rookie move. So hopefully everybody read my lips, and it was a beautiful welcome. And so we'll skip that. No, we usually have these welcome to the junior post-secondary meeting. Some refer to it as a college meeting. It is in no way just a college meeting, but clearly we're going to talk a lot about college and 4-year options and 2-year options and things like that. But every year we meet with the junior parents either before Christmas or right after Christmas to have a conversation about life after high school. And every year it's a little different in the fact that, I think parents panic around this time. Some parents panic freshman year. Some parents panic sophomore year. Should I be doing more? Should I have already started this process? I think we're here to tell you whatever we talk about tonight. In no way, if you're just starting this process, did you do anything wrong? It is completely logical to start thinking about this process now. And our guidance staff is here to kind of talk about things that every year we kind of go through and just start thinking about a timeline and start thinking about things that we think are important through this post-secondary planning process for your kids. Love that there's so many kids on the call. We'll talk about how we're going to meet with the kids and what the process is for individual meetings, other group meetings, for the rest of this year, the late winter, the spring, and then into the first semester of senior year. We like to think of this as a year-long process, but in no way is it exactly a year-long process. Whatever we're doing right now is just starting the process. And for every family, this process can be overwhelming. And it's so easy for me to say. I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. So when I say there's no real reason to stress about this on an ongoing basis, it's so easy for me to say. I'm not naive to not understand that you're going to stress at different times. That being said, there's no right or wrong on this whole thing. We can adjust and we can make plans. This part of the process, though, is just beginning to dream, to really put all those dreams you've talked about with your kids over the last many years, what your kids have been dreaming about, put them into a plan that kind of is mapped out over the next several months. But there's no wrong right now. Your kids could come home and say, I want to go to Harvard. And you look at the kid and you're like, there's no way you're going to Harvard. And I'm like, that's cool. Let's dream. You have a bunch of kids who might be thinking about taking a gap year, or might be thinking about traveling, or might be talking about joining the military, or might be talking about doing a unique technical program or a 2-year community college. There's no right or wrong right now during this process. It really is an opportunity for you to start the dialogue with your kids, and hopefully with our assistance, because we also understand that if you talk to your kids about this process, part of the process, and say, hey, let's dream together, you might get a lot of grunts, or you might get a lot of I don't want to talk about this. So if we can help you with that process and with that dialogue with your kids, we really, that's why we got into this business. We really want to help your kids and develop a plan for post-secondary life. So I'd love to introduce people just briefly. We have all the guidance staff on this call. They have almost all of the kids. I don't have many. I have such a small caseload of upperclassmen. And if anything, I have all the freshmen in the building. So I knew all your kids if they entered Martha's Vineyard Regional High School as a ninth grader, but you're in wonderful hands. They got assigned another guidance counselor their sophomore year, Erica Mulvey, Sean Mulvey, Michelle Lynch are the three main 10th through 12th grade guidance counselors. We have a wonderful staff in the guidance office led by Cindy Grant and Jessica Estrella. And they do so much of this process, and we're going to talk about what their unique roles are. Cindy deals with a lot of the actual nitty gritty of applying to schools and getting transcripts out and recommendations out and helping your kids when they pop into guidance. And we're hoping by next year, they'll be popping into guidance on a regular basis. And Jessica, at the end of this meeting, will talk a little bit about the scholarship program. Not that you can do anything about the scholarship program right now, but we want to make sure you know what you're in for this time next year. So without further ado, I'll kick off the actual just kind of overview of what we're going to be talking about. And I want to get the COVID thing really. Yeah, that's the elephant in the room. We understand that. And we understand that COVID has been on everybody's mind for the last almost year now. I'm here to say we're not going to talk a lot about COVID. Hopefully that's refreshing. We will have some COVID disclaimers along the way, but truly this is new for the whole world on how COVID is impacting the post-secondary process for students. Our seniors are living it right now. Our message to seniors is nothing changed in regards to deadlines for applying to colleges and trying to figure out what you're going to do after you graduate. COVID or no COVID, you have to come up with a plan for our current seniors for June of 2021. What COVID has impacted is clearly the school program, remote education, and whatever our political views, whatever our COVID views, they're almost irrelevant to this discussion tonight. And I hope that's refreshing to everybody especially for the people who have been on so many other COVID-driven meetings. Whether you have been a part of a remote program, whether your kids are going to start doing hybrid beginning Monday, or they opt into hybrid for January 25th, whether they stay remote, that is irrelevant to us when it comes to post-secondary planning. So I say that not to be cavalier, and not to be naive that COVID has impacted the world, and I don't want to minimize that, but truly, whatever happens during this post-secondary planning process for the next several months leading into senior year, COVID, when you're applying to colleges or deciding to take a year off, or deciding to go to a technical school, or deciding to do an amazing vocational program, or going to travel, really doesn't impact us when we have to come up with a plan. So that being said, we are open to questions about how COVID maybe has impacted the college application process, because that could be on a lot of minds. But I will refer you to our school website at the end of this meeting, and we will share it at different times, possibly through this meeting. But if you go to our school website, there are a ton of resources for our current senior class. There are articles about how COVID has impacted the process. There are articles and podcasts from college admissions people on how COVID is impacting the process. So please, there are a ton of resources that we have gathered on our school website to answer some questions you might have. The bottom line is, whatever is on there, this is brand new to the world. So you do have the luxury of at least going through it, being the second wave of kids going through it. But please refer to our school website and our guidance website. There is so much information there. There is a page dedicated to the class of not a page, but there's information to the class of 2021. We just started information specific for you guys for the class of 2022. There will be meetings. There will be all the stuff that we kind of go over. All of these meetings and past meetings are on the website. There is all news, and that's where all the articles are. So please refer to that at different times. And at the bottom of that webpage, you will see a way to set up appointments with us. And we're going to talk about that as we go through tonight. and how you make an appointment with your individual guidance counselor. You'll see, you just click on, our lovely pictures there. You make an appointment, and that's how you create a individual appointment to meet with your guidance counselor. And that could be used by kids and parents. And we're going to talk about the timetable of when you should. Not everybody needs to set up an appointment. Don't panic. Don't go there right now to our guidance website and have our website crash for that. Just, we will tell you what that timetable is going to be on when it's the appropriate time to meet with your guidance counselor. So we're going to talk about Naviance today. We're going to talk about SATs. We're going to talk about creating lists of potential schools if your family is interested in pursuing colleges. 4-year school, 2-year schools, and vocational programs and amazing tech programs. We're going to talk about early decision versus early action. We're going to talk about a fall timeline for when your kids are seniors. And we're going to tell you what you can do right now at the end of this meeting. So the individual guidance counselors are going to say their pieces along the way. Again, please utilize the chat. Have some patience on the chat. You guys have all sat through plenty of meetings where people kind of fire off questions, and I'm guilty of this as well. And maybe just wait a little bit, and maybe the question will be answered. But please, if there's a question on your mind, don't feel weird about putting it in there. I might hesitate in jumping in with the question because I know we're going to get to it. And if I don't get to your question, we'll have time at the end. So Erica Mobley is going to start talking about Naviance. I will say what I'm doing with the freshmen is a preview, not a preview. It's what I tried to do with your kids when they were freshmen. We introduced them to Naviance their freshman year. And that Naviance program is a program that you're going to have to get to know and love, really beginning now. If your kids are looking at you blankly when you talk about Naviance, or they're looking at me blankly right now when I'm talking about Naviance, that's okay. We're going to show you how you log in and all that stuff. Sophomore year, I will say the part that COVID interrupted a little bit. Usually in the spring of sophomore year, we go into Naviance and we have the kids all log in and do some more Naviance stuff. No big deal. We will get everybody caught up. So without further ado, Erica has started sharing with you Naviance.
Hi, everybody. John, just real quick, I don't see that there's a chat. So I don't know if you can add that after the fact. But what we can do after each topic, we can just stop and see if there's any questions. You guys are more than welcome to unmute and just shout out whatever questions you have. Okay, so Naviance, yeah, the kids should be familiar with it, but they may not have spent a ton of time. But like John said, we really need them to become familiar with it now. So I'm going to go through a few things. Don't worry, we will be emailing all of you and the students a bunch of handouts tomorrow, and there will be instructions for Naviance that will go through all of the things that I'm telling you now. So don't worry about taking notes on all the steps. I promise there will be a handout that will walk you through everything. Okay, so what is Naviance? Naviance is a resource that we use that it's twofold. One, it really helps students explore their interests, their strengths, possible areas of study and careers. And so it's a really useful tool for them as they're exploring what they'd like to do for their next steps. But it's also a tool that we use to help students apply to college. So we actually submit all of the school documents to colleges electronically through Naviance. So as a senior, they really will be very familiar. We will require them to be monitoring their accounts. And Cindy is our Naviance extraordinaire, who really, I don't know what we do without her in this regard, but she's on top of this program, and she can identify who has applied to colleges when, and she keeps us posted and updated all the time. And so really, we're so thankful that she's able to do all of that. But it really is nice to have everything housed in one area. So, but just to start off, going back to what I said about interests and strengths and exploring all of those things, we always ask kids the question that they get asked from the time they're little: what do you want to be when you grow up? Right? And now that question has morphed into, oh, where do you want to go to college and what do you want to study? I still think that's a hard question. And I'd love to see us shift as a society to, instead of what do you want to be when you grow up, what are you good at, right? What are your skills and strengths, and maybe what are your challenges? I think it's so important to identify those things and to have students really start thinking about that. So if you're a student out there and you're not sure what you want to do, that's okay. What I'd rather you do is almost create a resume of what your skills and strengths are. And you'll need to have that as you get older and you're out in the workforce and you're creating a resume. You know, your potential employers need to know what skills you have and what strengths you have and how you can build on that. And chances are, you know, you're going to start off doing whatever you first think that you want to do, but that may change, right? A lot of us, you know, change careers and paths, and that happens quite a bit. But throughout all of those changes, the one constant is going to be knowing what your strengths are and how to use those. So Naviance is a great tool to help us explore that. So I'm going to start off with over here. So this is my account, my student account. You'll get to see my GPA and the colleges I'm interested in. So this is exactly what your students' Naviance accounts look like. Oh, I should probably back up and say, you no longer need a password, students. So we told them this the other day, and we've been reminding them. So you can find Naviance and click on it directly from your G Suite account. So you go right into all of your apps from your school email, and Naviance is there. And there is this little icon. It looks like a little star, almost that greenish star. So it's very easy to find. On the instructions, it'll remind you how to get into Naviance. Okay, so once you're here, we've got some main categories over here. And I'm going to start off with the About Me category. No, don't log me out. Okay, so there are a few things that we'd like students to have done before we meet with them for the junior meeting. So if you go down here to My Assessments, that's where I'm going to begin. So there's a few questionnaires on here that are actually really fun for students to do, and it's really cool to see what the parents think of the results, right? I always like to get their perspective and see if they agree or disagree with results. So if we want to start off with the Strengths Explorer, this will help students figure out what they might be good at, right? So they're kind of unique questions, and when the kids fill them out, they're like, why on earth are they asking me this? I promise there's a reason for it. So I took this survey, and these are my top 3 themes. So apparently I'm a future thinker. That's kind of cool. And I guess I'm pretty caring. I'm not sure about the organizing piece, but you know, whatever. I like to be organized, I always say, but I may not always be organized, but I like to be. So these are my 3 themes. So what can this do for me? Well, it can help me decide, or, you know, follow some of these themes, follow a path to potential careers or majors. So when I clicked on, if you saw what I did there, sorry. So if you click on See Related Career Pathways, it'll bring you to all of these potential areas that I might want to study or pursue as a career. For some reason, I thought travel and tourism would be kind of cool. And then anyone that I see that is interesting, I'm going to go ahead and click the favorite, and it will save that to a list for me. So this is really fun. The kids can do this. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes. It's not long. So we'd love to see them do that before they meet with us. So then if I go here to careers I'm thinking about, there are all my favorites, and it saves it for them. So that's pretty cool. All right, so I'm going to go back to About Me. I'm going to go back to my assessments, and then there's the Career Interest Profiler. So again, if you're really not sure what on earth you'd like to do for a career, then do these surveys, and it'll get you going with some ideas, right? So this cracks me up. It thinks that I'm artistic. I don't know where on earth that came from. So it might not always be 100% accurate, but it gives you some ideas. And yeah, I'm not very realistic, I guess. I don't know about that. All right, so those are my embarrassing assessment results. Okay, so then there's another one, just a career cluster finder, same thing, like, just start doing all of these things and exploring, and each page will take you to another page, and there's really lots of cool information on here. So if I go back to career and I want to see, okay, well, what is educational guide? Look at that, guidance, how funny. So if I click on that career, it gives me a lot of information about the career. Then there's all these related occupations. So let's say a student is interested in the sciences, but they don't really know what realm, or they like biology, but there's so many different kinds. Well, they can click on that career and then see all of the related possible careers, And there might be things that they never thought of before. So this is all part of the junior year exploration phase. And that's why we love Naviance, to help them explore all of this. Okay, so that is under the About Me. I'm gonna leave the assessments and go under My Stuff, because this is a huge one. And this is something that we hope the students have already started. And if not, they can be doing this now. So the resume should always be updated. And here's why. I cannot tell you how many seniors I have that ask me, hey, Mrs. Mulvey, did you keep track of my community service hours? I need to add that to my college application. I'm like, no, I don't keep track of that. You're in high school now and you have a resume. That's your job. You need to keep track of that. So same thing with awards. They love to ask me what awards they've received, which it just cracks me up. So at least every year, they should be adding things to their resume so that when it comes time to apply to college, they don't have to think back to that award they got at honors night when they were a freshman. So the way to add things to your resume is super easy. This red button over here gives you all of the categories that you can add. So awards and certificates, they would likely use. Work experience, so all those summer jobs. I love writing about summer jobs in my letters of recommendation. I think kids really get a lot out of those. Education, extracurricular activities, right? So they can add whatever the activity is and the duration. It really makes it so easy for you. So that's how to add things to a resume. When you're all done, you do have the option to print it as a PDF, and it comes out in a nice resume format. So if a student needs a resume for a job, they can be using this. No, I don't want to leave that page. Okay. So please, kiddos, work on your resumes. These should be updated on a regular basis, because trust me, you're not going to remember everything by the time you get to be a senior. So easy to just pull this up when you're filling out your applications. Okay, so we talked about assessments, we did the resume. So let's go over to colleges and take a look here. So same idea. You can create a list of all the favorite colleges that you are thinking about. Sure, I can leave that page. Okay, so I have some schools on the list that I'm thinking about, and you can throw any schools on here. So you should start thinking and looking and exploring, and maybe some of you already have a list of potential schools. Go ahead and add them into your Naviance account. That way they're here for you to be thinking about and looking closer at. The great thing that I love about having all of this information in Naviance is that I can see how I compare as a student to all the other students and from our high school, from Martha's Vineyard, that have applied to those colleges, so that I have a sense of where I might be as far as getting accepted and if that's a good fit for me. So I'm going to start with UMass Amherst because I love this, because there's just so much data for this school. So if you go to the college, and I'll show you how to add them to your list. But if I go to the college and I go over here to more, and then I go down to scattergrams, I just love this page because it's just full of information, not just the comparison, but also, hold on, my slow internet. Here we go. All right, so first of all, I get a snapshot of some really great information right off the bat. Okay, it talks about deadlines, how much it costs to apply, the acceptance rate, like there's a ton of stuff right there. I can go directly to their website, which is super important to do. So there's a lot of information, but this is what we call the scattergram. So as students are creating their potential list of schools, they want to find schools that really work for them. And I know Mrs. Lynch is going to talk more about that in a little bit. But these are all the students in the last however many years that have applied to UMass Amherst. So obviously we have a bunch of kiddos who've gotten in. Those are the green checks. The red X's did not get in, and those little blue circles are students who were waitlisted and did not get in, and then the green circles were waitlisted and did get in. So where's my GPA? I don't have, so I'm gonna lie and say that my GPA was a 5.0, but maybe I'm not a super strong test taker, so I got 1100, which may or may not be my real score. I'm not telling. So that would put me on this little graph somewhere over here. So that's probably a good bet a school that I feel pretty confident applying to. Could be a little bit of a reach, not really sure. So this is just really important to be looking at that data. And of course, you can go onto college websites and get a sense as well, looking at their average scores and things like that. So how do I find colleges? Well, I'm going to show you real quick. There's a lot of ways to get to the colleges. First of all, if I were going back to my interests and potential majors, it could hook me up with colleges that way that have my major, but I really like to do a search, and we can do this together during the meetings later this year when we meet together just as individuals and parents, the junior meetings. So I like to go here to find your fit, and I do the advanced college search. So some of you may be ready to go with this. It's okay if you're not there yet, but for those of you that are just chomping at the bit to get going, then you can go through this search and type in all of your, or select all of your preferences. These are all the categories, and then you'll get a nice list of schools that match the things that you're looking for. So that's a pretty cool piece of Naviance that we really like to use. And then of course you can favorite those little hearts. You can just favorite all the schools that you think are might be a good fit for you. So that's in a nutshell. I know I'm going through this quick. I promise there'll be instructions, but for those of you that are really there with me and ready to go, I just wanted to cover all this. So again, colleges I'm thinking about, and next year as seniors, we'll talk about how to actually move them to your application list. We're just not there yet. All right, one cool feature that's new in Naviance that I really need to point out, and I think that might be it for the Naviance portion. So Road Trip Nation. So this is really cool, and I honestly have not spent a lot of time in this yet because it is so new. It's not even, I think they just added this maybe in the spring. Anyway, so again, kids aren't always sure what they want to do, and to be honest, you know, there's so much changing in the workforce now that, you know, you hear it all the time that, well, we're not even sure what jobs are going to exist when these students graduate from high school. And that may be true. It's also really hard to know what's out there when, you know, you're busy with school. It's not like you can just take weeks off, don't get any ideas, and go shadow people and go around and, you know, intern for a day at various jobs. So this feature of Naviance gives you a chance to explore careers and hear testimonies from leaders that are out there in hundreds of fields. So what a cool thing. And they call it Road Trip Nation because a group of people went on the road, basically went across the country and did all of these interviews, which is really cool. So if I go down here, I can look up by interest or by theme. I'm going to go by interest. And so these are just a bunch of areas of possible careers that I might find interesting. So I could click on any one of these. I'm going to go with education again, just because it's what I know. So if I click on any one of these, I can see, and these are, again, these are the leaders in the field. So I can click on anyone that looks interesting, and I might be drawn to female leaders. So I might want to check out Angela here and see, so she's a CEO, and I can read all about her and learn about her career, right? So what it's like a day in the life of all of these amazing people. So this is a really cool feature that I would highly recommend that you guys spend some time on, because I think you'll learn a lot, and it's a chance to really see what it might be like when you can't actually be there, right? So that is under careers, Road Trip Nation, really cool stuff. Okay, what else in Naviance? I know that was a lot, I promise. We'll go through this again in the junior meeting. I think that might be it. So the handout is coming. There's also a bunch of other handouts that we will give to you, that we would have given to you if we were in person tonight, but again, we will email those to you tomorrow, to parents and students. So please print them out, have them handy, and then they will also be on our website. Any questions for me about Naviance?
I just wanted to say one quick thing. The important thing about doing the resume is that it will come in handy when you're applying for school and applying for scholarship applications, because you're going to need to utilize all of that information. So have your students get it done.
Yeah, with the resume too, we actually require it if we are going to write a letter of recommendation for you. So if a student requests a letter from us, the resume is required, and I print them and I look through them and I incorporate the important things into every letter that I write. So if you want a letter from your guidance counselor, you have to fill out your resume. It's a requirement. So that's definitely something that you guys can start doing now when you have a few minutes, and you can log in, you know, little bits at a time and start working on this stuff. And we'll talk at the end about other things that you can be doing now, but that is definitely a huge one.
And the other thing about the resume, I would not, this is not going to be a formal resume. You're probably not going to use it in this format for what many of the adults think when they hear resume. It's just a way. Erica started this conversation with joking about like kids don't remember what they did, and that's fair. And we can brainstorm together. But one of the ways, there's only a few things that you can do when you leave this meeting. But if your kids can update their resume right now, summer jobs, current jobs, awards they've won, unique programs that they've done, any of that stuff, it's just a place to compile all this stuff for everything that Erica mentioned, Jessica mentioned. It's going to come in handy when you fill out the scholarship application. It's going to come in handy when you fill out your college application, because eventually if you're filling out a college application, especially through Common App, which is the majority of kids will be using the Common App, the huge majority of kids, there's a place to put 10 activities. And it's just a nice place to compile all your information. And then, like what Erica said, for teachers who are writing recommendations, guidance counselors who are writing recommendations, it's just a great place for all of us to refer. Just because I know my kids very well, and so so the other guidance counselors by the time we're doing the senior year, but we don't remember exactly what every kid did every summer. So it's nice to know, hey, they worked full time at Reliable for 3 years. We want to make sure we're putting the correct stuff in the resume, and we don't want to bother the kids with another email back and forth. So it's just a great place to compile all that information. So that's helpful. And please, let me apologize for the lack of chat feature. And I just went into my Zoom settings and I struggled with that. So I think I have it set, but it's not showing up on this particular meeting. Mary, I see your hand up.
So I just had a question about the resume because I know that it's helpful for the guidance counselors when you're doing a letter of recommendation, but what about teachers? Do they have access to that if they're doing a letter of recommendation?
Yes, Mary, that's a great question. Yeah, so when students are requesting letters from teachers as well, the students need to let us know which teachers have said yes, and we actually link those teachers with their Naviance account. So it's not viewable to everyone, but just those teachers that have agreed to write a letter. So teachers then can utilize the resume, but however, just keep in mind that some teachers may require their own information. They might have specific questions, but they will let the student know. Or they might ask the student, hey, do you have a resume? And the student can say, my Naviance resume is all set. You can utilize that one. So yeah, great question. Anything else about Naviance? All right, awesome. I'm going to turn it over to Michelle Lynch. She's going to talk about SATs.
All right, so hi everyone. So the parts that I'm about to talk about are specifically for students thinking about four-year schools. I will start off by saying that for two-year schools and a lot of more career-based programs, also if you're thinking about like the military, gap year programs, like a lot of it is open enrollment. So if you apply, you may get in. So for example, or if you apply, you will get in. That's the definition of open enrollment. So for example, at community college, it's open enrollment. So all you have to do is, provide them with the information they require and you will get accepted. Same thing's true for a lot of other career-based programs. So if that's what you're thinking, then this SAT part might not be relevant. But so the first thing I want to say is that the SAT has definitely changed a lot because of the pandemic. So prior to the pandemic, we were moving in a direction as colleges in the United States away from making the SAT something that's required. So You know, I know when I was going to school, most schools require the SAT. And if you wanted to apply to the state universities, you know, you had to take the SAT. Even before the pandemic, that was starting to change. There were over 1,000 colleges in this country that did not require the SAT. They were SAT optional. So oftentimes, if you didn't provide SAT scores, you would provide like an extra writing sample. So now with the pandemic, we all know it's been difficult to take the SAT. SAT, you may have registered for the SAT, and then we had to cancel, you know, because the Board of Health did not allow it to move forward. So it's been very difficult to take the SAT. So for the current senior class, they, you know, the SAT was basically not required at any schools. For your class, I think, you know, it's going to stick. I think that, you know, not 100% of schools by any means, but there are going to be a number of schools that are going to continue to be SAT optional moving past this. So I'm going to share my screen with you so I can kind of show you what I'm talking about. All right, so I'm trying to get this out of the way.
Hi, can I ask a question?
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
yep, I can hear you. Can
Oh,
you-
yeah.
Yeah.
So my daughter, you know, you're talking about gap years, even though, like, I kind of, you know, maybe want her to take a gap year, but right now, obviously, she's thinking, no way, you know, kind of thing. Because, like, thinking about maybe moving from America to Ireland.
Mhm.
And I kind of had looked into it a little bit, but not that much. But I think that she'd have to start off in the US and then transfer. I think, do you know anything about that at all? Because it's very hard for me to find out about that stuff. It's because I haven't been able to go home I would have been home sooner. I would have been home this year, and I would have been asking more questions at home, like in schools and friends of mine, you know, who are teachers and stuff like that. But because there's a lot of you know, European students, you know, in Ireland, you know, from America,
Mhm.
and, you know, vice versa, the other way around. And say, even if my daughter went for a couple of years to college in America, I don't know if you know about this kind of thing, but if she did a couple of years here and then she decided to go for a year or semester, do you know anything about any of that stuff? I mean, it's kind, you can look it up, but it's kind of hard. I just does anybody know anything about
Yeah,
it?
I mean, I would say, you know, there's kind of two different ways to go about that. So if your daughter wants to graduate from a college in this, you know, in the United States, almost every college has an extensive study abroad program, and a lot of colleges have satellite campuses. So, you know, there may be colleges that you can research and they have a satellite campus
Yeah.
where you're looking for, and that would be an opportunity either for a semester or for a year. If you're looking more at, you know, getting the degree from the college abroad, then you would go ahead, and I think it'd be, you know, be important for you to start at that university, because unless it's an American school abroad, they're not going to have the same requirements. So it would be important.
Yeah, well, she'd have to start off here anyway, because to get into a college, you know, we don't pay for university. You used to have to pay it all for college, but things have changed a little bit in some of the universities, you know, the better ones at home. But starting off, she wouldn't be able to, because you have to have Gaelic to get entry into a college, even though she would be able to, because you know, she has an Irish passport, which would make a big difference in her. That helps her getting in as a student, and also, but she would have to have Gaelic to initially to enter into a college, because it's mandatory, and so. But I just did I was just trying to find out about.
Oh, absolutely. And so, your initial question, we do have experience. In fact, we have 2 students right now that are applying international to European schools. And
Gotcha.
so, absolutely, at your individual junior meeting, which we'll talk about, because you're going to have an individual junior meeting with your counselor and your daughter, and that'll be a
Right.
long meeting to talk about those things. But we definitely have some experience, and Cindy sends transcripts internationally, and I will say it segues into what Michelle's talking about, because I will say, ironically, what Michelle's talking about the SATs, they are very strict about taking the standardized tests in order to.
Yeah, it's
They
very
have,
strict over there. Yeah, yeah.
so we'll definitely talk about those at the individual
Oh,
meeting.
that'll be great. Yeah, grand. Thanks very much.
No problem.
So just to continue on this conversation about test optional. So this was back in 2018. There were, over 1,000 colleges, 300 were top tier institutions, and half of the US News top 100 liberal arts colleges were test optional. And then if you go to today, December 18th, 2020, you can see that it's 1,685 plus. So I just wanted to make sure that that you knew that. With that said, the SAT can certainly help your application. So for students who have traditionally been very strong at standardized tests, you definitely want to go ahead and take the SAT. But if you're a student, or if you have a student who traditionally has struggled with standardized tests, then you might not need to do that. So as you're building your list, it's important to go to the admissions websites and check out if they require the SAT or not. But my point, I guess, is that don't be surprised if they don't require the SAT. So if you want to, I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. If you want to register for the SAT, then you go ahead to the College Board website and you create an account, and you'll register. Every year there's a test March, May, and June, and then again in the fall, so October, November, December. There's a new test date at the end of August. That's one that we do not offer at our high school, but if you're interested in that test date, you could go ahead and look online and see where the closest site is to us. SAT subject test is another thing that if you if you have a student who's a very strong test taker, and they have a subject that they have really excelled in, and maybe they've taken the AP class, at the end of the year when the knowledge is fresh, they can get and take a subject. And again, this probably isn't going to be required for the programs that the student is applying to, but if a student gets a very high score, it will certainly help with their application. I would definitely recommend, if you're going to take the SAT, to take it twice. And there's also an essay section that most colleges do not require, but you could go ahead, if you're taking the SAT anyway, to take it with the essay at least once. And to send your scores, you do that also through the College Board. And so, you don't have to memorize all of this information now. We will be giving you a handout that has this information, and we'll also be talking about it at the junior meeting that we have with you and your student. John, was there anything you wanted to add about the SAT?
No, I mean, the SAT, again, like we talked about in the beginning, the SAT is a controversial thing for a lot of people. And just know, like Michelle said, some schools were moving away from it. We are still recommending kids to obviously prepare for it. And you don't want to be left holding the bag if you're like all of a sudden have a bunch of schools on your list when all is said and done your senior year that do require the SAT. So when in doubt, I would say it doesn't hurt to take the test, and it's a good life skill to have. And we are still encouraging our kids to prepare for it, to prep really, truly prep for it. It is a test that you can prepare for, and you can prepare on your own. Khan Academy is partnered with the College Board. When you create an account, there are tons of resources. There's private entities, private organizations on the islands that you can do some tutoring with. But there is the PSAT, which we offer to the juniors in October. There are so many ways to practice for the SAT. The thing I would say about the College Board is it's you have to create your own accounts. The families are you are individually on your own for the SAT, in the fact that your son or daughter is going to create an account for College Board that is your account that will follow you through the time of your graduation senior year. And we recommend juniors to take the SAT at least once in the spring, and then come back and take it in the fall and prep along the way. And it's not, people get stressed by the SAT. There are plenty of studies out there. Clearly, you have to be mentally prepared to take the SAT as much as academically prepared to take the SAT. And so I know Alice has a lot of experience with this, and I'd love, please jump in, Alice.
I just wanted to say one thing is, I think parents should hear that there's also the ACT, and that they're two different tests, and they really cater to two different sets of strengths. So, and all colleges accept either one. So, I mean, just because you guys only give the SAT here, but if a student decides, he or she's going to do better with the ACT, they can go off island
Absolutely.
and find an ACT.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And I know the individual counselors will talk to their kids individually about, really talking about what's the best test for them. But you're absolutely right, Alice. It's an option. It's a little more of a hardship to go take it. You can go to Falmouth, you can go to the Cape to take it. You don't have to go that far. And our kids do choose to take that sometimes off islands. But a lot of kids will take the SAT in the spring just to kind of do a dry run there, and then look into the ACT as well. We will work individually with you guys as a family to come up with the best path, and look at your list. And when you're dreaming, remember, we're dreaming. We're not coming up with a final list. If you're applying to colleges and you're all set to, that is your goal right now. To go to a 4-year school, we are dreaming about schools right now, and we are creating bigger lists and smaller lists. Nothing is off the table. As you create those lists, we want you to do the research, because we're going to leave that up to you. There's no way we're going to know absolutely who's going to require the SAT, who's not going to require the SAT. The ACT absolutely is part of the conversation. So please, that's the part. We're just laying the foundation for it. And it's exciting to do research truly, I don't want that to sound lame, that it's exciting. It really is. If you embrace that part of the challenge of this, you can really use Naviance to your advantage, use the technology at your disposal, use the college, create that College Board website, because there's so many amazing ways to do searches there as well. The last I would say about the actual what's going to happen. We really don't know what's going to happen. I will say, you may have heard all the things about, we closed down, we weren't a test site at different times in the fall. We were able to be a test site multiple times in the fall. So I can't imagine when we're not going to be, God willing, that we're going to be test sites in May and June as well. So that is our plan, to host the SAT in May and June. Mary, I see your hands.
Are there high school teachers that are offering SAT prep like they did in the past?
Yeah, so I don't know exactly. That got canceled. So we have always, for the years that I've been here, there has always been an English teacher and a math teacher that have gotten together. Bill McCarthy did it for years. Kate Hennigan was going to take over the English part of that. And Melissa Braillard and Carol Flanders as math teachers were going to do that at a pretty low cost. That was a private. They happened to be teachers, but they were doing it privately once a week leading up to the May exam. So that would start around the February break. That is the plan again, but I will say it got canceled in the spring, and it would just be where we're at with COVID and who we can have in our building at night. There are private agencies, private organizations on the islands who offer it as well. There are private people that do it individually as well. If you do some if you call us, we have names of people, but if you do some searches about stuff on the island, you will find those groups as well. But I'm hoping, Mary, I just can't promise that right now, as far as what our kind of option that our teachers have done.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, sorry, my wife and I are having a feedback issue. So there's no class that you can take at the high school, like a SAT prep class.
We experimented for the first time. I've been here 20 plus years, and for the first time we offered one last year, first semester, and then it got canceled second semester. And because of scheduling this year, we just did, because of so many unknowns, we just didn't offer a college, an SAT prep. So
Understood.
Yeah. So right now,
the other question I had was, if the student takes the SAT and then they don't do as well as like their grades look, can they hide the SAT from the schools? That don't require SATs?
Undercover brother.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what a lot of students do. So they'll take the SAT twice, see what their highest scores are, and then they will look and see what, you know, the national average is for the the range. And I can show you that. I can share the screen and show you that. And if they, you know, if their SAT scores are not going to help them, then they just don't send their SAT scores.
Right.
So let me show you where in Naviance, that's actually, thank you for saying that. That's something I wanted to show you. And I also wanted, before I do that, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the prep. So as John said, you can use Khan Academy, and it was really built out in collaboration with College Board, which writes the SAT. So it's a very excellent program. If you took the PSAT, you can actually pull in how you did on the PSAT in particular questions, and it will be a personalized prep. You just have to create a Khan Academy account, and then you can you know, set up a study schedule. I usually recommend for students that they start studying like regularly, like multiple times a week, about 3 months before you're going to go ahead and take the test. And then also, if you are interested in like an individualized tutor, we have a list of tutors on this island. And so if you go ahead and reach out to your guidance counselor, you know, or Cindy or Jessica, we can go ahead and send you the list of tutors that we have. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen again. So if you go to Naviance, so I have Erica Mulvey here. So there's LaSalle University, which was a school that I picked. If you scroll down to the bottom of the overview page, you can see that for the SAT, the national average is in this range, and the students that apply for this college is in this range. So that's about kind of like the average score you'd get on the SAT, because it's a bell curve. So you don't need to have, you know, stellar SAT scores for this school. And, you know, one reason, if you're thinking about a four-year school, that, you know, it's good to take the SAT is, especially if you think, you know, you'll get an average score, is, you know, you may get, at least an average score, then you may get some scholarship money from the schools based off of your SAT score. So for LaSalle, since they have like an average score, if your score was above average, you may get a merit-based scholarship. So that is that. So I'm also going to transition and talk about creating a list of schools. So you want to go ahead and have schools that you know you can get into. So we call those sure shot schools. schools that are, within your range. So good shot schools, schools that, you think match where you're at academically, and then, reached schools. And it's really important to have all three. And something else you want to consider is, my daughter's in the background. I don't know if you can hear her. Something else you want to consider is financial safety schools. So you saw the scattergram before. So for this school, admissions, extend. I don't know what's happening. Hold on. All right, well, that's not working, but you saw the scattergram before, and then you just saw when I showed you the SAT, the national average, and then our school average. And then there's also a GPA range. So you can go ahead and look at that. It's particularly important, that first overview page, if we have not had a lot of students apply to a school, because then we're not going to have scattergram information, because it's based off of the the students that have applied from Martha's Vineyard Regional High School. It's data for about 10 years. So if you haven't applied, if we haven't had a lot of students apply, then the information will be more helpful from that overview page. And then for financial safety schools, oftentimes for most families, those are the state universities within Massachusetts. So if financial aid is something that your family cares about, then I would recommend applying to the state universities as one option. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is, if you want a sense of what financial aid you might be eligible for, something good to do is an EFC calculator. You can go ahead and put in your finance information, and a number will come out. And that number is the amount of money that your family is expected to pay for college. It's certainly going to be more money than you actually feel like you can pay for college. But that's the information that the colleges use and the federal government uses to determine how much grants you might receive from the federal government, and then how much financial aid the school is able to give you. It does not, like the merit-based scholarships are different, but any need-based scholarships will be determined based off of how much this EFC calculator says that you can afford to pay for college. Can I answer any questions at this point? All right. I'm passing it on to Sean now.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us.
Oh, sorry. Could I just when are we having the meetings, the individual meetings? Sorry. I couldn't get to the mute thing. I just wanted to ask when those meetings were happening.
They will happen at some point during the spring semester because they're such, they're over an hour meetings usually.
Right.
So it'll take us a while since we have such large.
Plenty of time to get that list ready.
Yeah. But
Great.
at some point during the spring semester, we'll be meeting with each family.
Okay, appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Yeah, and they will be, they'll be very personalized to your family, and
very thorough and all that kind.
Yeah, not everyone is a four-year college, and
absolutely, for sure. Yeah, that's great. It gives us time and all the rest. I wasn't too sure about the timeline. So, grand, thank you.
Well, I'm going to transition us into talking about the times of year that if you do all the hard work, like Michelle was describing, to pick those schools and use Naviance, like Erica said, to do your research ahead of time, you got to figure out when you're going to apply, and there's a couple of different ways. And if you're a parent of a first-time junior, you don't have kids older than this, or if you do, they didn't go to college, you may or may not have heard the terms early action and early decision. There's all sorts of news out there about those things, but I want to do a little bit of clarification. But to back up, there's ways to apply to college timelines. And the most common one is actually called regular decision. That's about this time of year, anywhere from January 1st through like mid or end of February. That's still the time of year most students apply to college. But the advent of early action and early decision has allowed students to apply as early as November 1st. So we're bringing this up now to give a little clarity on it so you can do some work ahead of time, and I'll discuss that briefly, so you can get to that point. So the two terms that we're talking about are early action and then again, early decision. So early action that I'll talk about first, that's the one that you can apply early if you choose to, but you need to indicate that to the colleges, and you're going to apply by their deadlines. What that does for you is mostly it lets you know your results sooner. If you apply by November 1st or 15th, you're probably going to know sometime in probably late December. So that lets you know where you stand a little bit sooner in your senior year. There's some peace of mind that goes with that. And possibly it lets you, plan your second semester a little bit different. So that is early action. You can apply to as many schools as you want to, early action. There's no restrictions to that. The difference is early decision. You get one school that you get to apply early decision to. What that means is if you apply to that school and they accept you, you're bound to go to that school. So you can see it's a big decision. So if you apply to UMass Amherst early decision, if they have an early decision program and they let you in, you need to say yes. It's an agreement that we as guidance counselors and you as parents and you and your student, that you're all going to sign off on, that you understand this, and if you get in, you're going to go. So while you can only apply to one school early decision, you can also apply to a lot of other schools early action. There's no restriction on other early action schools you can apply to for the most part. So if you can tell the difference between those two, they both have November through November 15th deadlines. Early action is way less restrictive. Early decision is way more restrictive. But what you will hear is that there's a little better chance of me getting in if I apply early decision. And yet by the percentages, that's probably true. But don't get hung up on this. If you are a go-getter student, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get on Naviance and start looking this stuff up. And over the summer, you're writing your essay, doing all these things you're supposed to do. And in the fall, you're ready to apply early action. Great, early action is totally for you. If you're thinking like, man, I have no clue what I want to do and I need some more time to get myself together, you can totally apply regular decision in January. That even gets you a chance to bring up those grades a little bit for first semester, and those first semester grades will be on your transcript so the colleges can see them. So there's benefits to both. Our message to everybody is just don't get bogged down in the details of that. But if you want to apply early just for the sake of getting your decision back to you sooner in December, then talk to your guidance counselor about it so that they kind of get you on that path and get you on that timeline. Because there's a few things you'd have to do, like ask for your teacher and counselor recommendations earlier, so you're not springing it on them at the last minute. You can't write a good recommendation if you don't have time to be thoughtful about it. So that's my short speech on early action and early decision. There's always questions about that, but those might be better fielded in your junior meeting because they're usually pretty specific. Something else I wanted to touch on is something you can actually do now. And this is something COVID did affect. This is your college visits. Like a lot of colleges, their campuses are not as wide open as they used to be, but it's great. I just did a quick search yesterday before we talked to the juniors during their flex lunchtime. And I searched 5 random colleges, and 3 of the 5 are actually accepting on-campus tours. So you can sign up ahead of time and you'll actually get a tour guide who's a student that goes to school there. They have all sorts of limits. Like you can only have a total of 3 people. Or one place was you're going to get a tour, but you're not going into any buildings. But you can still get on campus. You can still walk around. You can see what it's like, to be there when other students are there. I can't emphasize enough. If you can get off island and go visit these colleges, it will give you as a student, for the students that are on board here tonight, it'll give you a visual picture of what that campus is like. It'll give you a feel for what it felt like. What does 40,000 students on a campus feel like compared to 3,000? Do you love a big school or a small school? There's a lot of value in that. So those are the on-campus visits. I'd say, hey, take advantage of, if you're taking off and you're going somewhere, there's not a lot of travel going on like there used to be. But if you're going somewhere off island, especially during your February break and spring break, take advantage of that time and try to do a visit. If you can, or in the meantime, I don't think colleges have ever been better about their web presence, for the resources that they have there, for their 360-degree tours of their campus. It's like you're right there on campus. They take you inside dorms. There's great resources on every college website, so you can actually take a look around the campus. They have pre-recorded things that they put on there, like student seminars or other things that they think that you're going to want to know to get to know that school. But there's an awful lot of value in going to the live events. So if you sign up for a live event, and sorry, Ryan, I'm going to wake you up and I see you on my screen. So if Ryan signs up and he's going to type in his email address, his MVYPS address, or MVRHS address, and he puts his name in there and he says, yes, UMass Amherst, I'd like to attend your live event. Well, all of a sudden, Ryan's on their map. He's like, oh, this Ryan kid wants to come to our school. And you're there for that live event. That's a way to let them know that you're interested in your school. It's a little bit different than just going on YouTube and watching videos about UMass Amherst. So you can kind of see the difference. Those are available all the time. In this virtual world, they have so many of these things going on. Sometimes it's talking to a panel of new students that are going there, currently going there. Sometimes it's talking to, the dean of admissions. So take advantage of this. You're going to find all these resources if you go to the school's individual website. It's probably the best spot to find it, and take advantage of all these things now. So that's something you can do with your college visits. Lastly, we're transitioning into your fall timeline. We keep talking about the junior meeting, which is it's a very thorough meeting that we will conduct sometime in the next couple of months, but we will also have one with you in the fall. That we astutely called your senior meeting. You see what we did there? You should be laughing right now. Okay, thank you. So your senior meeting, it's different. That we're hoping by your senior meeting, you've made some decisions. You show up to the meeting with a list of colleges or training programs or community colleges you want to pursue, and then we're kind of going from there. So we have that. That's in the fall. Also in the fall is we have a financial aid night. And that's put on by a company not a company, but a program named MIFA. I'm going to look at my notes because I never remember, Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority. And they're not a for-profit company. This is Massachusetts doing a good thing for families. They are excellent explaining how to fill out the FAFSA. What are your options for taking parent loans? They're one of the things I recommend the most. Just go to MIFA.org, I believe. Get signed up on their newsletter or their weekly reminders, and they will kind of keep you on track for what you need to be doing. So these are the people that are actually going to give our financial aid night. In the past, when we have live events, they've come here and done that, and I'm sure somehow we'll either get it hooked up so that we get a live event with them again, or we'll use their resources. Also in the fall comes your job as parents to fill out the FAFSA forms, or there's a more advanced version of that for some selected private schools called the CSS profile. It's even more information about your finances, but that's something you can look forward to in the spring. But it's not as hard as most people make it sound if your taxes are in order and you filed like for this past year. I'm gonna transition off to Erica. She's gonna give you more things that you can work on now.
All right, everybody, you guys are awesome. We are just about done, but if you want to take a couple of last minute notes, now is the time. Get out your little notepad and pen, because I'm going to just recap what you should be doing between now and the spring when we have your junior meeting. So Michelle talked about SATs and prepping. You can start that anytime. Of course, I talked about the resume. That is definitely something that you can be doing. Start thinking and exploring and keeping lists and taking notes. If you do visit any campuses or even do those virtual tours that Sean was talking about, take some notes. What did I like about the school? What didn't I like? Maybe you'll start to get a sense of what type of campus might be for you. Be thinking about potential careers based on things that you are interested in and you have strengths in. Right? Remember, I talked about that strengths and skills resume. So be thinking about that. start having discussions about finances and looking at that EFC calculator that Michelle talked about. All of the colleges have that on their website, so you can get a sense of how much it might cost your family to attend. So that is what you can be doing right now. But please have fun with this. As John said before, this is the time to dream and explore, and Google is your best friend right now. Social media, if there's colleges that you're interested in, join their Instagram, right? All that fun stuff. It's just a great way to, all these resources that we did not have when we were younger. So there's so much at your fingertips, and you just can't, in my opinion, you can't do enough of that. So, as you're sitting in front of the TV at night, grab your laptop and be Googling and researching and exploring and have fun with all that. One last thing I should have mentioned earlier about Naviance. I know we don't have a chat, but people have been chatting me. This is a great question. Can parents have a Naviance account? The answer is yes. So it's more of a view only. You can't do a whole lot to your student's account, but you can be monitoring and watching what they're doing and give them suggestions, things like that. So most parents just log in with their student and log into the student's account, and that's just fine. But if you want to have your own Naviance account, then I would go ahead and email our Naviance queen, Cindy, at cgrant@mvyps.org. And Cindy, you'll just give them, is it a link or you'll actually give them a password? How does that work?
What I do is I connect the link and the password to their email. So either you can email me your email or call me and I can help you go through it over the phone. But it's very easy, and it really is better for parents to have their own account. So I'm happy to help anybody.
Awesome. Thank you, Cindy. All right, are there any questions before I turn it over to John to give a wrap up for the evening? You guys did great. You hung in there. I know it's a lot of information, but any questions at this point?
Am I on? Oh yeah. Hi. A question for Erica. The Naviance website address is what?
So the kids, the parent one will give you that website when you sign up for the parent account, but the students don't need the website. They log in through their G Suite. So it's like an app for them. So if I gave you the website now, you wouldn't be able to find ours, right, Cindy? They have to just wait till they get their own account. Yeah.
Okay.
It's also on our website. So if you go to the guidance page, there is a link to the Naviance account.
Okay.
Yeah, but Charlie, just email Cindy or give her a call. We'll get you set up.
You need to be linked to Martha's Vineyard Regional High School. So It's one thing just to go to Naviance. It's not going to really get you anywhere unless you are linked to NPRHS. So I will help you. Call me tomorrow.
Okay. So one more question for Sean. You were talking about the fall, the fall timeline.
Yep.
That's this fall in junior year.
That's once you get through summer and you're starting your senior year.
Okay. And then the early action, early decision is January of senior year.
Those two that we were talking the most about, those early action and early decision, those are November your senior year.
Okay. That's like the final countdown.
Just the current seniors right now, they're the ones that are applying in this regular decision window. So
when do the colleges normally notify you of acceptance?
If you're a rolling decision or a regular decision applicant, so you're applying in like January through February, they'll let you know like March and April.
Okay, cool. All right, thanks guys. Fabulous job.
Thanks, Charlie.
Yeah.
And Charlie, that kind of leads to my conclusion. We talked about it as sort of a year-long process beginning now. It's a little more than a year-long process, because what we do when we work with the seniors in the fall is we said, hey, remember that junior meeting? You were supposed to dream. You were supposed to create this huge list of amazing things that you might want to pursue. And it could be going to Hawaii and going to Harvard at the same time. And that obviously doesn't make sense to any of us sitting here right now, but let's dream, and then eventually we need to narrow that list, and that begins in the fall. And so the timeline that's going to be shared with all you guys and documents that are going to be sent, like Erica referred to, we're going to have a lot of documents that we're going to share with you beginning tomorrow. We didn't want to confuse this and have a bunch of documents kind of floating out there without explaining them. We're going to explain all this stuff, and the timeline's going to be on it. It will be on our website, the guidance web page. But really, why it's a year-long process is exactly what you just asked, like when the colleges let you know. So there's so much pressure on your kids to apply early, and Sean did such a good job of talking or trying to like kind of bat that back a little bit, because really it'll feel like everybody's applying early. Not everybody is applying early. We had maybe 20% of our kids apply early. Early means November 1st, November 15th, November 30th, depending on the school. And some might even be October 15th. And the beauty of doing that early is that you know before Christmas. At least you have some answers before Christmas. And like Sean said, most kids are not applying an early decision. You will make yourself crazy trying to manipulate the early decision game. And you're going to read articles that say, you have such a better chance to apply early, an early decision. And so a lot of our kids apply, a handful of our kids apply early decision. Well, most of those kids get deferred. And there's a chance they get rejected. There's a handful of kids that might know before Christmas. There are a handful of kids that know before Christmas what they're doing for the rest of, and they're done with the process. So many more kids are not going to apply early. And even the ones who apply early action are probably still going to apply in January, February. And then you start getting word back in March, and maybe even some in April. And the kids who were deferred, or some kids get put on the wait list, you won't even know until later in the spring. May 1st is a big deadline for colleges, because May 1st is when they're going to ask you to send the deposits. And if we do this process right, if we're thinking traditional four-year college, and we create huge lists and amazing lists that we then pare down, and we have safety schools, we have reach schools, we have still a fun list in September, and you're not applying to 20 schools, you're applying to a group of schools that makes sense to you individually. And when you do that, when you get those applications in, again, most of you in a regular decision deadline, if you do that right, you will get acceptances in February and March and April. And now the power comes back to you, and then you can sit back and have fun, and you make a decision by May 1st. And there will be a lot of pressure on you to get it all done by November. All my friends who have kids your age are calling me as a guidance counselor, and they're saying, can you talk to my kid? They're all stressed. My kid didn't do exactly what they were supposed to do. They didn't apply by November 1st. I literally met with friends' kids this fall, buddies I went to college with. I'm like, your kid is not crazy. Don't worry. You can apply in January and February. It's okay. But the power comes back to you for May 1st. And again, I will say, kids transfer. I know this feels like this is like the biggest decision of your lives, and it is a huge decision. Again, I don't want to be naive, but there are plenty of kids that transfer who go to UMass and say, that's too big, and they go to a smaller place, end up at Stonehill and they want to go to a bigger place, end up in a Massachusetts school and they want to go down to Florida, or vice versa. It is okay. Your life will not be ruined. I promise. You will be an expert when you go through the process the second time. It's okay. It's truly okay. You are not going to screw this part of the process up. But please, you're going to have to shut off the noise from friends, from relatives, from social media, from websites that are telling you you're doing the wrong thing. Trust us. If you have any questions, please reach out to your individual guidance counselor. We will do our best to help you through that individual process. We get so many panicked emails and calls, and we're like, no, it's okay. It's going to be okay. The junior meeting will start in March. I know there was a question about that. You will get Zoom links. We are going to do those virtually. It just doesn't make sense. I know kids are coming into the building. We're not going to invite everybody into the building. We love doing them in person. The beauty of this Zoom thing, this works, doing a junior meeting over Zoom. We can share a lot of stuff. It makes sense. Your guidance counselors are going to reach out to you with the Zoom invite. Please bear with us when we try to schedule those meetings, because they are difficult to schedule 170 junior meetings. So we might assign a time to you, And please try to make it work. We understand you work and we understand there are more convenient times. If it's a time that does not work for you, please just reach out to the individual guidance counselor and we will do our best to accommodate you. We're not going to send out all those invites all at once. If you believe that you need to be seen sooner than later, which I'm sure a lot of people believe that. But if you truly are so nervous about this process and you're like, oh my God, my meeting might be in April and I want to make sure like I get in March because I'm planning on going to visit schools and, you know, again, God willing, get on a plane and go to California for April break and I want to go visit schools. That's okay. Just reach out to your individual guidance counselor and we will help schedule those meetings sooner than later. But just know, if your meeting is in April, you're not going to miss anything if you know people are meeting in March. That's a perfect example of shutting out the noise and not worrying about it. The last I would say to your kids, how you can help your kids is they will be stressed through this process. You need to be the beacons of reason and hope through this process. Just know that every senior this summer, all people do to make small talk with a senior is, what are you going to do after high school? What are you going to do after high school? It becomes stressful for kids. I am guilty of that. When I run into kids in the summer, hey, you got any plans for next year? It is annoying. We all feed into that. Please, what we are begging you as parents is to be the sane part. When they are losing their minds, reassure them that it's going to be okay. And if you question yourself that it's going to be okay, reach out to us and we'll help you, reassure you. But don't lose it with your kids. They are supposed to be the ones losing it through this process. And just know that we will get them through it. There will be deadlines in the fall, and that is stressful for every human being, adults and kids. As adults, we need to help them through that. So that's my message. That's our message and guidance. We love going through this process, and really, we're here to help you. So any last questions? Again, you guys have been troopers.
No, that's great that you said about that stress thing, because that's just exactly what's happening right this last couple of weeks. It's like all of a sudden, it's like a car and college, a car and college. I'm like, that's all I hear, the two C's. So it's like, where am I going to go? Where am I going to go? I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to go with you. It'll be fine. Like, but yeah, that's good. I'm glad that you said that.
And if you don't trust
not so crazy.
And if you don't trust yourself, just give us a heads up and we'll pull your kid in and we will reiterate.
Yeah.
So you're not the only one sending that message. And remember, like I really, like Erica said this so well, and everybody said this, it doesn't have to be college for everybody. Like there are so many amazing programs and opportunities out there for kids and gap year programs, and we have all that information. So there's so many incredible things that you can do besides going to a traditional 4-year school. And there's a lot of pressure on kids to force themselves into that mode. We have so many resources to share. It's on our website. You can Google it yourself, but we have so many amazing programs that our kids have done that are on our website. It's alternative programs. Please help yourself to that information. But again, I appreciate what you said, Rosario. They're like,
yeah, it's just like a pressure cooker right now for some of the kids. I think so. It's like they just feel it because they're not there to support each other on a daily basis. So it's hard.
And sometimes that won't help being even around their friends because their friends are going to be like putting more pressure on them. But
yeah, it's very competitive, that's, I think, but thank you for that. Yeah,
you're welcome. Shannon?
I wanted to just speak as a parent of a child who took a gap year. And I don't know if you spoke about this. I was late picking my kid up from basketball practice. But not every kid is ready for college. And like you said, that pressure from other parents. I had so many parents with my oldest. What is he going to do? What college is he going to? He decided after fighting with him to apply to colleges that a gap year was what he needed, and it was the best thing he ever did. So and he did this amazing program in the Bahamas, and it changed his life. And I think that parents don't be afraid and kids don't be afraid to make that choice, because you can always apply and defer. There's always college.
So Shannon, that's a great point. And we actually will talk more about those specific things. We're going to do this again for all of you at the start of senior year, and we're going to talk more on options. But I love that. And I think it's great for kids to go out and get real world experience, especially if they're not sure what they want to do. College is a really expensive commitment to make. So if you want to
Oh,
go
yeah.
and see and explore, and again, I keep stressing on this, but honing in on what are your skills and strengths and figuring that out. And then I think college can be even more meaningful to them because they've seen it and they've been out there. So that's a great point. If anybody wants to stick around for questions, that's great. But you all, I think, are free to go.
Thank you.
I only have one question. What's for dinner?
I don't know, whatever the kids are cooking at our
What
house.
time do you want
Oh, no wonder the fire alarms are going off.
I know. We
All
both
right.
go.
Well,
Sean
thank you.
Mulvey, Tisbury Tigers.
Oh.
Nicely done. Nicely done. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Oh, yeah.
Guys, take care. Have a good night.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Welcome.